Hey there, this is Lorraine, and today I wanted to share the backstory of our big news that we bought 55 acres of literal Iowa paradise in southern Iowa. It has been a very long time coming. Chris and I have been chasing this dream of owning more land and a bigger house. I've been basically chasing it my whole life, but he has been actively on this journey with me for about the past 3 to 6 years, really. It's been a super long time that we've been working on this dream. But today I just wanted to share the whole story with you so you can kind of get the insider information on how we arrived at this beautiful land. So, way back in the day, I grew up in Waterloo, Iowa, in a Queen Anne Victorian house. It was a huge old house, and I have so many fond memories of growing up in that ginormous house. I have just always loved living in a big house. Chris always lived in a small house, so in 2012, when we first decided to buy our sweet little one-room schoolhouse out in the country on only 1.5 acres. At the time, it was definitely our dream house. Neither of us had ever bought a house before. We had just rented, so buying our first house and having it be basically our dream house at the time was a big deal. When we were house hunting, we looked at a lot of different houses in Waterloo, and back then, I was quite the city girl, and I never thought that I would move to the country. I never thought that we'd move to Chris's hometown, but one night, after a night of drinking and partying, as the outlaw does, we were laying in his parents' driveway in the middle of the night, and I saw my very first shooting star. And that was when I made the decision that I wanted to move to the country. So this was before we started officially house hunting. We rented a very small 2-bedroom house in Waterloo, and we started our house search. We looked at a lot of different houses. I stumbled upon this kind of ugly little house on 1.5 acres, and one of the stipulations for Chris was there had to be enough room for a shooting range. This house was on 1.5 acres. It was easy to drive back to Waterloo, and we were sold. We came and saw it, put in an offer over the asking price, and for the past 10 years, 9-10 years, we've been making this sweet little one-room schoolhouse a dream home. We've poured our hearts into it. We've put about $100,000 of work into it between putting in a fence and updating everything. I mean, this house is about 100 years old, so even though it doesn't look like it, it is a very old house. It was a cheap old house. Little did we know, but his desire to have enough room for a shooting range would catapult us into a life that we never thought possible for ourselves. So previous to running our YouTube channel, Honest Outlaw, Chris was a tree trimmer, and he continued to do trees for a very long time while also running Honest Outlaw. It has since become his full-time job, and now I am taking on a larger role in the process. So I am starting to take a step back from my company, which is a wedding photography company, and booking less weddings so that I can focus more on providing our amazing viewers with so much more content. I've always known that this was not going to be our home forever. We don't have kids yet. We've been together 12 years, but we knew eventually someday we'd want to have kids, and it's only a 2-bedroom house, and 1.5 acres is a lot of land when you've come from living in the city, but I'm an introvert, and I actually really love being alone in the country. I am much more of a country girl than I originally thought I was back in the day, and so I just knew that I always wanted to have just a lot more land to spread out, a lot more land to explore. I've always wanted to live in a forest, just so I could walk out my door and go for a walk through the forest and enjoy that. So I just knew that there was something more out there for us. So the nitty-gritty is that building multiple companies can sometimes tank your credit score. So I myself have been on a journey of paying off all of my business debt, all my personal debt for about 5 years. I've been trying to raise my credit score, and all of those things seemed to take massive flight in 2020. Now, 2020 was such a crazy year for everyone. We paid off a lot of debt and really did a good job of putting ourselves in good financial standing so that we could make our dreams come true. Now, last year, we kind of realized that it was almost time to make this decision of what our next step was. And we'd thought about moving out of state multiple times, and we just never really knew where. Back in the day, we thought about Oregon, and then we thought about Idaho, and then we thought about North Carolina and Texas, and all of these places we dreamed of starting a new life. But the truth is, both of us really love our families, and we don't think we could move that far away. And there's a lot of other reasons why we chose to stay in Iowa. First of all, we thought about moving to Kansas City, seriously. It's only about 5 hours from where we live, and it wouldn't be too much of a drive for both of our families to come visit us or to come back. So we visited Kansas City a couple times, and we really enjoyed visiting, but we couldn't really see ourselves living there. It was lower taxes, but not enough to really make that much of a difference. And there wasn't a whole lot of pros and more cons. So then we thought about moving to the Des Moines area. As much as y'all think we live in Ames, we don't. We actually live closer to the Waterloo Cedar Falls area. And so we've thought about moving to the Des Moines area. And then after making that decision, we changed our minds once again. We thought about moving to Tennessee. So I'd fallen in love with the Nashville area a couple years ago when I took a solo road trip from Iowa all the way down to Georgia, and I just fell in love with Tennessee. So I proposed moving around Nashville, and we took a couple of road trips there. The first time we road tripped and we got to see the entire countryside from Missouri into Kentucky into Tennessee, and it was a lot of fun. It wasn't exactly quite a vacation. It was more of like a scouting mission as well. We did have a lot of fun exploring those states and those areas, but I'm so thankful we did it because it helped us make a good decision in staying in Iowa. One of the big draws of Tennessee was obviously Nashville is super fun. There's lots of things to do. They have sports teams, they have music, just like a lot of fun things to do. Another thing that really drew us was the fact that they don't have income tax. So that would save us a little money. However, going on the road trip from Memphis to Nashville was eye-opening because we got to see how the roads were taken care of. There were some potholes along the route from Memphis to Nashville that could take your car out. Like, we had to have the app Waze on the whole time to alert us where the potholes were so that we could get out of the way, because we were just not interested in flat tires along the highway and getting stuck. So we really got to see that living in the South maybe wasn't necessarily for us. We did see a couple houses with our amazing realtor, Ashley Fitz. She's a realtor in Nashville, and she is an absolutely amazing realtor. And I wish she could have been our realtor here in Iowa, but she showed us a couple houses, and we were ready to pull the trigger immediately without even seeing the houses. So I am so glad we went and looked, because we would have been so upset. We got pre-approved to buy a house, and we were honestly looking at the top of our price range in the Nashville area, and Nashville is just such a fast-growing area that the housing prices are ridiculous. So we were looking at the top of our budget, and we were seeing these houses that basically needed full renovations, full gut jobs, and we knew that that was just not something we could live through. And also, the houses that had all the land that we wanted were like an hour away from Nashville. And we realized that it was just not worth moving 11 hours away for everything that we would have to go through and all the traveling that we still would have to do to go have fun. So that's when we decided that Nashville wasn't for us. So then we decided to move back to Des Moines. That's where we had been thinking about multiple different times. And then we had the decision of, do we buy a house or do we build a house? And as you may know, as you may have heard, the housing market after COVID has just exploded. So besides price, we were just not finding the houses that we could imagine ourselves living in with the amount of land that we wanted. So we were going back and forth because you have to have a way higher credit score to buy land than you do to buy a house. So a lot of banks actually told us no on the land because our credit score wasn't high enough. However, we got easily a pre-approved for a house. So that was really frustrating as well. So for a while we were just waiting for the perfect house to show up. One day we contacted our realtor, Ashley Grandgeorge at Iowa Realty, to look at a house near Ames, and it was only on 10 acres, and that was like way lower than what we wanted, and we were about to go see it, and that was when it was like the old proverb goes, if you have two possible paths and you would toss a coin up in the air, by the time the coin lands, you really know what your heart wants. And when we were about to go look at this land that was at the top of our price range, where I'm sure multiple people were going to put in bids and we were going to pay way more than what we wanted to pay for this house, we realized that we wanted to build. It was literally that day that I looked online, as I had done numerous times for the past 3 years, and I took the price cap off of our land. At first we were only going to spend $200,000 on our land, so I took the price cap off, and we found this beautiful 55-acre property that had no photos at all on the listing, that had been on the market for 14 plus months, and decided to go look at it. So we went and looked at it. It was pretty clear why it had been on the market for so long, over a year, because there was no photos on the listing, first of all. Second of all, when you get there, there's like no place to park. It's on a county road. There's really no access into it. It was surrounded by a barbed wire fence, and there's like 50 cows, including a bull, on the property. So it's really hard for people to look at that property unless they're super motivated like we were. So we climbed, we didn't climb, we laid on the ground and like scooted under the barbed wire. We got a bunch of ticks on us. We had to stay at a distance from the cows because we didn't want the bull to attack. So we literally only saw the very front portion and the very back portion of the land. And we saw the pond. It was a ginormous pond. And basically the pond sold us. And we put in an offer. Luckily, we found a lender that was amazing, that helped us get the money. And we bought 55 acres for $265,000, which is around, I think, between $4,500 and $4,700 per acre, which is unheard of in Iowa. Iowa dirt is worth so much money. Usually it goes between $8,000 and $10,000 per acre, and so this was a steal. Yes, it was over our budget. However, it was just, we couldn't pass up. This was the dream. This land had waited for us over a year to find it and to make the decision on where we wanted to move, and it just came together so magically. So we had to jump through so many hurdles to get this land, and someday down the line when we do have children, we will be able to tell them how hard we worked to make this dream life happen, not only for us but for them and for our grandchildren and all the generations to come. I won't go into that. That's still hurts a little bit, all the stuff that we had to go through, but it's okay. It's ours now. So we went to the closing date, and even on the closing date we couldn't go see it, which means we'd never seen our land that we were officially buying in totality, because the cows weren't going to get moved until like 3 days after. So we lived 2.5 hours from the land that we bought, and we just never got the chance to go down and see it until last week. It is literally the most magical place on earth. I am so thankful that we went through everything that we went through in order to decide to stay in Iowa. I'm thankful that during COVID, we literally traveled the most that we ever have. We went somewhere almost every single month, and we kind of got to see where the real free states are. In January, Chris went to Texas, and he thought that Texas was going to be like the freest state, and Iowa was way freer and looser with like COVID mandates and things like that. We really got to see firsthand that everything that we want is here in Iowa. There's barely any traffic, there's barely any people. You're never gonna get stuck in traffic for an hour through Des Moines like you would maybe in Nashville or Kansas City. There's about 3 million people in Kansas City and in Nashville, and there's 3 million people in Iowa as an entire state. So the population density is just so much less here, which is perfect for me as an introvert, less running into people. And we just really truly realized that Iowa, we always wanted to get away from Iowa. I think everyone from the Midwest, when they're a teenager and young adult, wants to leave, but we have gotten to see so many different places and experience those ways of life, and we realize that Iowa is where we want to be for the type of life that we want to live. This wild and free and carefree and peaceful life. Yeah, it might be a little more boring in Iowa, but the pros far outweigh the cons. And Chris is a logical thinker, and so we literally sat down, wrote out a pros and cons list on paper, and Des Moines was the clear winner on that. So we are now the proud owners of 55 acres of paradise. We are currently saving up for the down payment on building our dream home and deciding what that dream home is going to look like. I have a love of southern homes, so we're definitely going to build a southern inspired home, but we're trying to work out the kinks with that and find the right builder for us, and we're trying to figure out the logistics of if we sell our house and move to our new area, or if we wait in our house until the house is built. So there's just a lot of different decisions now to be made, which I'm so thankful that we get to make those decisions and we're on the right track. So that's the story of our beautiful 55 acres. I can't wait to share more information about it with you. I can't wait to get started on building the range. I can't wait to spend more time down there and get to know the land. But as far as I know right now, it is literally the most beautiful place on earth. It is the most magical place on earth, and I can't wait to start our new life there. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see you later. Bye!